So, welcome to our new slot, which is Wednesday, 4 to 6. Hopefully we've got a better signal. Didn't count how many people are on the beach, but it is quieter. We've always been blaming it on that. So we're on episode 19, incredibly, and this is our celebration of expanded cinema. And it all started with... Oh, let's find some light. Give me a torch. Gene Youngblood's expanded cinema. Hooray! Written in 1970, or at least published in 1970. This is my very well-worn copy. Years ago, from 1986 to 1989, I studied 16mm filmmaking at North East London Poly. And before I started, a friend of mine, Ken Cheetham, gave me his copy of the book. He'd already scribbled all over it, and it became a real source of imagination for me and helped me on my journey into non-narrative filmmaking. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. I started in 16mm working with celluloid, and I was able to process the film myself. And I was getting to a point where I was learning to use an optical printer. Many years later, I got into digital, and although I always loved celluloid, actually doing some of the things that I was trying to do with an optical printer digitally turned out to be, unsurprisingly, much simpler. Tim, if you can put it on 1 and 3. So this is our version of Stargate, and we're going to be coming back to this a little later on in the programme and talking about it. But yes, so for those of you who know, who made the
Donald Trumbull.
Donald Trumbull, yeah. So from 2001: A Space Odyssey, I will say that, Stanley Kubrick's film, and this is our journey into space. And today, so it's been 2 weeks since we've done a live broadcast, and we contacted all the people we collaborated with and asked them would they be happy for us to put some of their films into the mix today, and they said yes. So today, showing work with us in our Medusa and Snail programme, we've got work from Sandra Crisp, Jonathan Armour, Stephen Carley, Svetlana Ochkovskaya, David Theobald, David Viey, Simon Ray, and of course live sound from Julia Schauerman.
Oh, you got some sound?
Yes, let's have some sound to go with our Stargate. Excellent. So, what's new this week, Tim?
I didn't think you were going to say that one. Lots of things are new. I was going to talk about Stargate. The Stargate sequence. This is by Donald Trumbull, isn't it? So, and there's a big chapter in Expanded Cinema about Stargate, and lots of computer projection art. But there's a big chapter on Stargate in particular, and explains how it was done by Donald Trumbull, which was using a huge amount of tracking and cameras in a huge space, I don't know, about 50 foot space with a huge long track. And basically, at the end of the track was a slit about 4 metre high by about 5 centimetres.
A slit scan, yeah?
Yeah, it's a slit scan technique. And behind the slit was a long kind of acetate image, brightly coloured image, a really long, wide image. So this is film, this is not using computers. So the way they did every single frame of the film, maybe 24 frames a second, is for each frame they put the camera all the way back, 30 foot back on the track, and slowly zoom the camera forward. What's that technical term for that, Nicola?
Track it.
Tracked it, and left the aperture open. So it's creating a long exposure over one image through the slit, which created this kind of smeared out blurring effect. That was just one frame. Then they'd take the camera all the way back, close the aperture, advance the acetate behind the slit forward a little bit, like maybe a centimetre, and then do the whole process again. So to make, I don't know how long it is in the film, 5 or 6 minutes. Faces in there. It looked like something like a Teletubbies there, Nicola. It's that smiling god thing, smiling sun. So yeah, they did that for every single frame in the film, then put it all together, and the end result was this kind of ever kind of stretched image. But behind the slit scan was this very, very long image, and since the film, people have reverse engineered the film and figured out what the acetate image actually was, which was kind of quite a bunch of all different kind of random hodgepodge of graphical type stuff. So for our version of slit scan, we're not using cameras at all, we use computers. And the thing about computers is you can do it live. So if Nicola, if you slow down your one on wall 1, just have a look at Nicola's one. Just slowed it right down. And you can compress the image down. You start to see the actual image that Nicola used
so
behind.
That's Medusa. It's Miss Medusa's. No,
and I can see it's a sort of combined of various effects that we've done over previous weeks of the show. And then if you speed it up again, or stretch it again, Nicola, you can create the Stargate effect of bombing through space like at hyperspeed, and the spaceship really stretched out, super stretched, really fast. And you can change the angles either end. You can compress it.
I mean, if we were going to develop this so they look more like the Stargate, we would have it brighter at one end, because anyone who knows the film, and when you see the two connected, so let's just get that there, it's more illuminated at one end. Funny enough.
Well, that's because of all the light on screen too, I suppose.
But it should be more illuminated at one end. So
that's part of what we've got. What is new this week is I've taken this a tiny step further. Was it this morning or yesterday? So I can reveal. Shall I reveal the background image of my screen, Nicola?
Sure.
So if I press F, full screen. That's the image that I used. So it's just a bunch of photos off of our shelf. These are little toys we used in the previous show. And that image is being stretched and passed through this not slit scan technique, just this kind of stretching technique using maths, stretching the x coordinates. You can stretch the y coordinate a bit more, a bit less. Take the other end in. We can change the speed and the direction. Slow, fast. We can get quite a range of effects. But then what I've added into this is an actual slit scan. So this is looking at this webcam. So if I point this at Nicola and press slit scan, is anything changing? Let's go back to the full screen image. You can see now on the full screen image now, it used to be the toys, but now it's actually looking at Nicola. So Nicola does a dance. You can see slow dance. There's the camera here, Nicola.
Yeah, so I'm just
So
trying to
it
get
looks
some
behind you.
light on you.
It's on you, not me.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to illuminate the space.
Okay, I'll point it at that thing there. You can point it at anything,
That's nice.
and it slowly changes the stretched image, and then if I take it off that becomes part of the Stargate. So I might leave this running throughout today. As things change in the space, you can see there's nothing on that screen, nothing very interesting. Let's get something more interesting up. Some dots, usuals, and size. And let's get them faster, and let's get them angled. So bit by bit, these dots will feed into the Stargate stretched image on the right. Lovely colours there, Nicola, look at that.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what's going to happen. I
That's
didn't expect that to happen. I guess that's when it was catching up with the back end. It kind of loops around. So it's a live Stargate slit scan. So that was new this week.
Very good. And I mean, one of the episodes we're going to do is going to be about travelling. So I guess we'll use the same.
Travelling?
Yeah, moving through something. Yeah, space travel. And we've got to do space travel, haven't we? This is the start of it, surely.
Warp drive, yeah.
And or trying to recreate some of the various, I suppose, special moments from films.
Slit scan is a great effect for computer. I love this when it sweeps across every now and then. I guess it's catching up. If I change the speed, I can change the slit size and so forth as well. Get all sorts of effect. I'm really look at it, strobing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good.
Okay, we'll keep that on, and I'm just going to say a little bit about what we're up to. So for anyone who hasn't seen this before, this is our Microworld at Home project, where we've filled our living room with lots of technology so that we can experiment and make things and learn and hopefully create things that we can put into future exhibitions. You know, we're interested in immersion and using lots of different methods to actually engage the audience. I mean, interaction plays a big part in what we do, but perhaps unusually for us, more or less all the interaction we're doing is actually keyboard-based and mouse-based. Of course, you know, anyone who's actually worked with interaction will know that you can then take the keyboard interface and actually, well, maybe put a Kinect in instead or a webcam so that actually acts as the triggers. So at the moment we've got 4 projectors in the space, each one obviously connected to a computer and running various programs. And unusually today we're actually going to be coming in and out of programs rather than just working with our See People program, which we started right from the beginning, to show some various programs we've written this week, responding to the theme of expanded cinema. Is there anything else you wanted to introduce that's new in the space? I can see there's a big keyboard in the corner.
Yeah, well, the only new piece of tech I bought myself another electronic keyboard, which literally came this afternoon. So I might sneak off into the corner every now and then and just play some drum and bass or whatever button I press. I'm not very musical. Press a button, see what happens. Yeah, it's interesting, but some nice different types of effects. I mean, obviously, you know, Nicola was saying about you don't want to put a keyboard in a gallery interactive piece because someone will press the escape button and crash the program. So you can't, that's a no-no. But you can use touch screens and get rid of the you know, the swiping, edge swiping and all that stuff. But yeah, you could we do want to do a piece where there is like a keyboard, but we can disable various of the buttons. We've got some kid keyboards, you know, ones with the really big buttons.
Yeah.
They're colourful, and then you can press anything and get effects. So that it's a bit arbitrary, but it's a different type of interaction.
And floor mats as well, I guess. Would be
Well, we're going to start exploring less touch-based interfaces. Obviously, because of the age of COVID, we need to reduce that if we want to get big commissions. Make sure these shows, everyone's confident in how to run it. So,
years and years and years ago, so specifically in 1985, I became very interested first in photography. In fact, I'd started doing photography in the early 80s, but then I read a book by Malcolm LeGrice on experimental filmmaking when I was on my foundation course, and got really, really interested in filmmaking and the possibility of actually processing film myself. I've been processing black and white negative for stills cameras, so why not go to 16mm? And I came across this course at North East London Poly to do 16mm filmmaking as part of a fine art course. And one of the things that really captured my imagination was this non-narrative filmmaking. I'd always felt I didn't have a story in me. In fact, someone said to me I didn't have a story in me. But I loved playing with lenses and with light, and it's just the fact that there was actually a tradition of working with experimental filmmaking. Just got, was really excited. And in fact, a defining moment for me was seeing Malcolm LeGrice's Berlin Horse. If you haven't seen it, you can find it on YouTube quite easily, and he's still busy making films, and he does stuff with computers now as well. Just very simple, short loop of film of horses and some archive footage of horses, which he's put through chemical processes. And so I applied to North East London Poly, I got in, and I was lucky enough to study with teachers that were also filmmakers at the London Filmmakers Co-op. So what I'm going to do, I'd quite like to introduce your Medusa and the Sea Snail programme now, because this is a programme that Tim wrote over a year ago, and he'll explain more about how it works. But I mentioned optical printers early on. One of the things that I was particularly interested in was superimposition and layering images over the top of each other, hand cranking the camera backwards to re-expose the film. And so what Tim's done is he's written a program that actually takes source material, and while I set it up, maybe let's explain more about it.
This came about because we were doing a project with the London Group, which is a collective of artists based in London. It's a cooperative. It's been in existence for over 100 years. It was set up by Bomberg and Epstein, and these kind of quite radical London artists who were having trouble getting into the Royal Academy shows. So they decided to set up their own group and create their own shows. And it still exists, and it's over 100 members today. And they've been having lots of lockdown online shows recently. And they're based mainly in the Cello Factory near Waterloo. So every year they have a couple of few shows, and for one of these shows we wanted to do a collaborative work where we work with Sandra Crisp and Brian Bench and Stephen Carley, a few other members of the group, each one making small video clips and sound clips, then passing it on to the next person adds something, passes it on. It went around about 3 times. So we thought, this would be interesting, but actually it didn't really hold together as a piece. It was just a bunch of clips. So I thought, okay, we need a program that pulls parts of these images and passes them through themselves. And I just read a short essay called Medusa and the Snail, which is about these two creatures in nature.
I think imagined nature though, isn't it?
Well,
it's a lovely, there are lots of creatures that do have remarkable symbiotic relationships, but I think this one was an imagined nature.
I think it was maybe embroidered slightly. It wasn't imagined, it existed, but I think and the idea was that these two creatures kind of eat each other. I'm going to try and remember the life story. Should I tell the life story, Nicola?
Well, you can just simply say that the
One was
Medusa starts big.
Medusa, a
with
jellyfish,
small
huge
snail.
jellyfish. Yeah. And
As
the
a
little tiny
parasite.
snail grabs onto the jellyfish, starts eating one of the tentacles, keeps eating, till it eats the entire jellyfish, gets huge, and all the jellyfish ends up as a little tiny jellyfish in its mouth, a little stub in the mouth of the snail. And then they both putting out lava at the time, and then the cycle goes on in the other way. A jellyfish gets born and captures the snail, surrounds the snail, and it goes on and on and on in a cycle. So two things eating each other. So this film basically has two playheads, and one grabbing a frame from the film at any point, and it passes it through the other frame.
So we've got lots of clips here made up that make up the film. If you can turn your content off wall 2, and I will start. And I'll put my camera down. And your camera down. And I will present it. And Tim, maybe you can play some music to go with this.
Okay.
That looks pretty amazing, doesn't it? So I mean, although we know how we've made this and we know what material we've put in, actually what we see is surprising. You know, you can't actually predict how it's going to work. We know where the playheads are and we can advance them and reduce them, but
the playheads, excuse me, the playheads, the gap between the two playheads changes every time round through the film. How long is the film? 4 minutes or so?
it's 4 minutes 30, yeah.
So every time through the film, the distance between the playheads changes.
Yeah.
And that will change the effect that you're getting. So it means the overall film, I can't remember, I worked out before, I think it lasts about 3 days before it repeats back to the beginning.
Exactly, yeah, precisely.
So I can see some of the things you've added in now. This geometric piece was Polygon Games, which was a series of workshops we did with teenagers in Margate. And then I recognised lots of the clips from previous shows.
Yeah, so
Everything is
it's a bit
pointing
dark,
at the one
yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
So when that one goes dark, haven't you got a solarising effect in this program?
Not this one. I've got it on a different one.
Okay.
So, but I might swap it over during the session, and then I can brighten it up a bit. And
So
in fact,
now-
we should brighten it up. We can brighten it up on here if we want to just.
No, it's fine. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
So.
But it's so. I find this really exciting. I'm sorry.
So another huge chapter in expanding cinema is about the John Whitney, who was a pioneer. I think they called it. Nicola, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, no, sorry. I thought I was going to talk about some stuff. Did you want to move into Whitney already?
No.
Because I just wanted to say that. So in the expanded cinema, there's a chapter called Syncretism and Metamorphosis. And I mean, the book is rich, and there's lots of things in there that are inspiring. But this particularly was something that I picked out years ago, and I feel it still has relevance now. It's this a term that I think was quite overused in the 90s, synesthetic for art. But there was an expression of synesthetic cinema. But anyway, the idea is creating a holistic film. It's film not of parts, not encouraging the audience to look at individual elements, but looking at something as a whole. And it's this Stan Brakhage, who is a filmmaker of great inspiration, was interested in child vision, this idea that the untutored brain looking and capturing everything with equal importance, not a specialised vision. And obviously superimposition, you know, is a way of achieving this, as I say, holistic or syncretistic vision. And so it's, although there is montage in it, there are decisions in terms of how films are, there are different sequences together. The superimposition is this overlaying of information, this merging, and as Jean Youngblood talks a bit, not montage, but metamorphosis, this continual shift. So it's viewing as an experience. It's not narrative, it's not about telling a story or interpreting a story. It's actually as an experience, fusing the inside and the outside. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you're saying it quite well, but the book's even more hippy-dippy than that. It's not just expanded cinema, it's expanded consciousness, and it's just written in the 60s, 70s, and it aligns with the happenings that are going on. But the language in the book is very over the top, kind of expanding. There's an intro by Buckminster Fuller. Do you want me to read a bit of it?
If you like, I've got it here. Or if you...
The words are just amazing. I mean, I'll read it. This is from the introduction. The metaphysical integrities manifest throughout the everywhere intertransforming universe's omni-interaccommodative cosmic organic system apparently are from time to time emulated in meagre degree by the intellect of the human passengers who are gestating within the spherical womb sheath of the planet's Earth's watery, gaseous and electromagnetic biosphere. And it just goes on and on and on in this kind of full kind of freak out language.
But I think there's a lot to get from it, isn't there? You know?
LSD is constantly mentioned throughout the book. But there is also large sections of the book which are just about practical or new technologies that they're using.
Which, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about Whitney in a minute.
Which is why I'm really excited.
I mean, but as you see, because I said, you know, I had difficulty with storytelling anyway, and the few times I tried to tell stories with film, I failed, in my opinion, failed dismally. But was really excited by the experience of, you know, being immersed in a colour space. And in fact, also in the chapter, it talks about, you know, Freud talks about the oceanic consciousness, but it's being washed over by what you're looking at or experiencing. And so filmmakers such as Stan Brakhage, Carrie Schneemann with Fuses, looking at actually creating something that talked to not the intellect, something else, something deeper inside, and connecting with the world. So though some, you could say hippy-dippy, a bit guffy, I think in this age of global warming and everyone thinking more about the environment, to actually try and be the butterfly or the moth in Mothlight, you know, to actually become part of this environment. I think
there's that, but then it also relies on huge amounts of then quite complicated and expensive technology. At one point they talk about a £2 million computer, NASA computer, to create a kind of a 3D map or something, which now is, you know, you can just do on your mobile phone or something. So
there you go.
It was a kind of a strange mix of Eastern thought, expansive conscious thought, and kind of hardcore technology, creating these amazing new effects.
We'll come back.
John Whitney, every film pretty much has got this kind of Indian tabla music going on in the background, which to me seems a bit odd, but then it kind of must have made sense.
However, we love the circle, so mandalas are obviously deeply rooted in us. But we'll come back to the newer sphere. But perhaps
that's another one. Keep doing this.
No, but I will. But
so no, I didn't come across this book till much later on in the year. I didn't have a film background, but I came. Yeah, we'll talk about how we met at Exploding Cinema, which they were obviously also.
Sure.
This book is key to their
David Viey is in the house, and David is part of Exploding Cinema, and this idea again of being surrounded by the film experience.
Visual overload.
Yeah, it's not about you, it's actually being part of something and actually being in the projection as well, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So we've been away for 2 weeks, and we're obviously full of things that we want to talk about, and I've got some other stuff, but Julia's going to be performing live in about 20 minutes. I've got video patterns, liquid light, but Tim, do you want to move to the witness now, or do you want to wait till after Julia? What do you want to do?
I'm going to talk a bit about the music that was playing. I'll just put it back on. So just as the film is made of lots of small bits put together, this program is made of lots of lots of small clips, some which people have sent in, others which I've dug out from which I've dug out from the early days of Genetic Movement. Me, Barney and Theo, and we're doing a lot of experiments with circuit bending and just messing around with computer recording and mixers and so forth. So there are lots of clips in here. I'll just whack a bunch up. I think Barney and Theo were a bit more acoustic than I was. I was into the electronic stuff. They were a bit more interested in instruments and Theo's sampling. So create kind of interesting mashup effects.
I think you're using my program on
So that again.
Are you using my...
Yes, I'm using your program, Nicola. Nicola wrote a little audio player which I've adapted. So this is about the nearest as I get to non-electronic Indian tabla music. So yeah, the Whitneys, John Whitney was the father, and he created, he's one of the pioneers of computer animation. He created this amazing films using these adapted military weapons, range finders that turned into rotating tables, which he'd put kind of gels on and things like that, and created these patterns which then got overlaid with zooms and long exposures. Then he had, I think, 3 sons who were...
Well, I know 2 of them. You say 3. I should put my 360 camera in.
Yeah, so they were brought up in a house which was filled with projectors. No telly or nothing, just loads and loads of projectors constantly going. So a bit like what we have in this room here. They weren't allowed to go to the cinema, Nicola,
Oh,
to watch
dear.
stories. So they all ended up making their own films. Incredible early stuff. You can see a lot of them on YouTube and so forth. And I don't know kind of what happened to them. They've not been forgotten, but they're definitely underrated. Not sure.
So, did you want to show something you'd written?
Yeah, I could do. I could stop this one.
Let me just do a little bit of filming.
I just remembered there's another program I wrote, which is I forgot to copy across.
Oh, well, don't worry, we can do that afterwards.
I'm going to put. Shall I leave this as it is now, or just change it?
Yeah,
to
I'm just
something
doing
else?
a little bit of filming because I've got to put the 360
Okay.
camera in.
Why is we doing the 360 camera for? Where does it go?
I'm just catching.
Hasn't gone anywhere, does it? Not yet.
It has. I've done some.
We've got this
online.
gadget, so we feel like we must use it, but we don't. And what's who's about this? This is that one of Stevens.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I'll turn this music back up.
Yeah, so a couple more minutes and then I'm going to show something else.
This is just a very, very simple computer program. It's just fading away, Nicola. So it's called Rugs. I'm going to restart it. Well, actually, I'll show you the program. The program is tiny. Basically, it's just one line of code. Well, it's one line of code really. It just goes for a loop, and it does this on all the coordinates. Just read it in, Nicola.
I'm just brightening up a bit.
They'll never be able to read it. We haven't really developed a system yet where you can read code. We will work this out as we go along because we want to try and do some live coding. But essentially, the program is just taking, adding the square of the x coordinate, the square of the y coordinate, and then converting that into one of 4 colours. So if dividing by 4, basically, if the remainder is 0. Draws black. If it's 1, it draws dark green. If it's 2, bright green. 3, brightest green. And then you just run the program and increase the a little variable that's sliding across it, so I can stop and start this. Can I stop and start this? Click on it and stop it. So just from that one, basically just from that one line, which is just a mathematical formula, simple one, you get all these circles of it. I've never written anything about circles in this program, but X squared plus Y squared. And these type of simple computer patterns were the type of thing that John Whitney started doing after he stopped working with his optical moving platter type table. He started moving into computer graphics. He's a pioneer of that, and worked with IBM and invented things. Well, had to be a bit careful to say he invented things, but one of the very first people to work with pixels on a screen and plotting patterns, formulas, and then use those to produce frames for a film. He couldn't do it live. Computers then weren't fast enough to generate. This is back in about 1970, I suppose. Computers weren't fast enough to generate a constant stream of images, but he could generate. I think he said he could do one a second or something like that. Put them all together into a film. Now you can do it using computers, create very simple equations. And I can stop and start this. At certain points, it looks random, and then at other points, suddenly a circle overtakes the whole thing. And I can stop and start to explore that from chaos to order. And both John Whitney and his sons developed quite a few programs using these type of effects, and then added Indian tabla music to them. Typically, they're called things like yantra and lapis and cool stuff. So, what next, Nicola?
Well, so I'm going to
show another one of his later on, or another pattern, and break it down a bit more as well, and talk about variables. That'd be interesting.
Lovely. Okay, so I wanted to just introduce three artists whose work from what I've said earlier, will make sense to you. So I've put some slides in. I've used my video patterns. Instead of putting patterns in this week, I've actually put in some images. So the first one, the caveat. So these
This is an art lecture.
And Tim, you're in the shot, which is fine, but you're adding to it. You're adding to the transparency. So basically, it's not that I particularly liked Picabier's work very much. It was the actual technique that I was interested in of these transparencies, because I was interested in this layering. And so I just thought, well, okay, why not actually introduce some of the pieces that actually inspired me to do superimposition. A friend of mine once said, if you're a filmmaker, be inspired by sculpture. If you're a poet, be inspired by painting. So I think it's completely reasonable that you look at different art forms. Another one was David Sally. So David Sally is still alive today, who came to prominence in the 1980s. And again, what I was particularly interested in was these complex arrangements of paintings within painting, or information within paintings. Again, I wasn't necessarily particularly interested in interpreting what might be narratives within them, but it was more to do with this remarkable construction. And then the last one, Lee Friedlander, a photographer who came to prominence in the 60s and 70s, actually for social realism, but it was his use of reflection in shop windows, or you can see, I don't know if you can see it properly there, but you can see there's sort of multiple images coming through of shop windows or mirrors, lenses, and you can see Lee Friedlander in the bottom left corner. Did you have any interest in any of these artists? Did they ever talk to you when you were at college?
I don't know if Friedlander is particularly, but Who were the other two?
David Sally and Picabia.
Yeah, I liked them at the time, Nicola, but that was like a lifetime ago. I don't look at
no, but this
Central.
is who. So this was what I was looking at when I was
Sally
on
was cool.
foundation
It's a bit of a rebel.
and whatever. But it was just this again, this sort of layering of imagery. So not necessarily.
I think I was probably playing video games while you were looking on these fine high artists. It's probably playing Mario World or something like that, Nicola. Which also has multi-layering effects and reflections.
Lovely, lovely.
Oh yeah, I put up thingy to rescue you from that boring still screen.
Yeah, so
Art
I can
lecture.
actually,
Thank you very much, Nicola.
I can actually put some little people on it. I can animate it as well. So if I go back to my slides and take this off, I can have little people
I
on.
think we'll have to have a steward's inquiry on this one, Nicola, after the.
I can animate my David Sally images with some white figures. I can make them bigger as well. So I added an element.
I do like all those artists, the ones I'd heard of, and I'm very interested in clashing layers. I guess lots of people were.
And aesthetics, yeah. And I mean, obviously, because Tim and I are collaborating, we're continually bringing together different.
I guess maybe it's to do with if you haven't got your own aesthetic, then nick someone else's and just clash it all together. There's that, and then I mean, also see computer art in that way. If you're sick of your own aesthetic, and I did start out doing like painting and drawing and stuff like that. If you're sick of it, then get a computer to make the decisions for you. So that's another reason why I moved into that field. Oh, and also I just love telling pixels what to do, where to go.
Fair enough. Right, so that's just a little bit. I thought it was interesting.
Thank you, Nicola, for that art lecture.
Yeah, but it's just this, obviously superimposition happens to a degree, classic filmmaking is always about, cutting sequences together. There's a certain amount of superimposition that goes on in film, but you don't see it very much in mainstream film, really.
Yeah, it's a key visual strand to expanded cinema. Get up as many screens and as many images as you can, see what happens.
Yeah. So we're going to be joining Julia in Sheffield shortly, and we're going to run a different version of Medusa and the Snail, and this one is has another title. In fact, even though it's Medusa and the Snail 2, is Sunstroke, and so it's using Tim's program. I found I don't know if you can see it. You can probably just about see this pamphlet. I found a pamphlet called Touchy Touchy Feely Feely, which was a film that I made with someone several years ago. And inside, I found a proposal to the Welsh Film Council, because I was living in Cardiff at
How many
the
years
time.
ago?
Oh, it doesn't have a date on it.
30?
Oh no, it does. 1994. And it was to make a film called Sunstroke. And it's involving Super 8 film, 16mm film, optical printing, objects, you name it. And it had 3 chapters to it: the sun, bird, and then sunbird. And so I thought, I wonder if I could just knock this together
30
in an
years
hour.
later.
Yeah,
26
in an hour,
years
instead
later.
of taking several months to make
Good job
it.
it didn't fund you.
No, actually reading it back, it was a bit naff. But nevertheless, it has some things in there that I'm interested in. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to go online, get some Creative Commons footage.
Is that Armour? No, it's gone. Never mind.
So I'm going to start this up because Julia's
some
going to be
audio,
streaming soon. Julia is going to be streaming soon.
Oh, of course,
okay?
yeah.
So I've got a film ready. It's called Sunstroke. And I'm just going to see, what time is it? 1 minute to go. So I'll just say then, so I'm just going to show you what's inside the folder. If I open up the frame, so this is what it looks like on the inside. So the film, we send it through another program and convert it into lots of JPEGs for the program to read. Okay, you can see there's some sun in there, and some clouds, some bodies, So it's thinking about this expanded consciousness or cosmic consciousness. Okay, so there's lots of things in there, and Julia is going to provide the backdrop for it. So, oh, did I just shut the program? So
all these programs are written in processing.
They work.
Version 3, free and open source software.
Okay,
Very good to get started with visuals.
Okay, so I'm just gonna see if Julia's there. Okay, I'm getting a signal, and I
You on
can't
your-
hear anything.
Do you want to be on?
Yeah. Okay, so bring it in, put it on quiet, because Julia's just started screaming. She'll be properly playing at 5 o'clock. Okay, so
5 o'clock. I'm not getting used to this later hour, Nicola. Usually done by now.
yeah. So this, I don't know if Julia's given me a name, but I know she said it's inspired by, we gave her a copy of Expanded Cinema. You can get a PDF of it online,
Yeah.
and it's all things psychedelic, and I'm
great.
hoping that the imagery will work, but you know, it was just knocked out this morning. And by the way, that's not to denigrate.
26 years late.
Yeah, well, but it's also not to dismiss all of the hours and years of work that went into these Expanded Cinema films from the 70s. It's easier now with the programme. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Tim, you can feed it in, and I will run the programme.
Just switching Julia's internet to a different ISP.
Sengoku no Sengoku, Sengoku no Sengoku, Sengoku no Sengoku, Sengoku no Sengoku, Sengoku no Sengoku. Summer is a coming in, louder Sengoku. Sing with feet and blow with me, the spring is forward now. Sengoku, you will bleed off the land, sing with off the car. All started back apart, the Mary Sengoku. Cuckoo, sing is now cuckoo, and cease so never now. Summer is a coming in, louder Sengoku. Grow with seed and blow with me, the spring is forward now. Sengoku, you bleated of the lamb, come low without the gun. The bull started back apart, the Mary Sengoku. Cuckoo, sing with now cuckoo, you see me never now. Summer is a coming in, louder Sengoku. Sing with
Cheers, Julia. Thank you very much for that. She's going to be phoning us up in a minute to tell us a little bit about that. The first time I've heard singing in the house. I think it's a cuckoo as well.
Bit folksy. Folksy. Fitted.
So we're just going to. So what did you say, Tim?
It fits expanded cinema.
It certainly does, and I hope that you're interested. So with the background, so the Medusa and snail. Or as I've called it, sunstroke this week, for this one, had a solarising effect in it as well, which I was just getting to grips with really, so it's a little bit twitchy, but I think, yeah, not a bad first attempt at throwing a load of stuff together.
What's that
See what
strobing?
happens. Yeah, it's
okay, it must mean, yeah, it means that
the pass rate.
No, it's fine. It does that sometimes, it just means you've got...
Yeah, I tell you what, I
you change the speed so fast and it's constantly changing the gap between...
I actually turned the wrong one. So yeah, it's even got a speed effect so you can scroll through it. So all of the footage, so the sea footage was
sea footage.
ours, and the bodies that you saw is also ours, and that was made for an Exploding Cinema event, actually, those bodies. Okay, it's Julia in the house. Julia, I'm just putting you on the speakerphone. I've got tangled. Cheers, Julia. So, what was that called?
That was called Psyche.
And sorry if you told us what it was, because I forgot.
And well, no, I wasn't sure whether I had. So, but yeah. Anyway, no, I enjoyed that. I realised that there was a little bit of sound problem at the beginning.
Yeah, just at the beginning.
Yeah, there's plenty of time.
Yeah. Do you know if the signal problem was at your end or our end? Because I'm doing it on a different signal to the other.
No, I heard it only on the phone because obviously I don't have it on the computer, so it certainly sounded interrupted on the phone. But then it settled in after Tim changed it. But because of the length of time, there's plenty of time to settle into it. So, but yeah, so I mean, this is the first time then that all the ingredients were instrumental and voice. so funny enough, my Audacity channels are looking at me and they've got pictures of instruments because of what I've labelled the tracks. But I started off, so I was using my little Hofner guitar, and I produced like an drone with striking that, going through some delay on the mixer and an amp, and then I had like little bass riff going on in there at some point. Then I had a warped pulse, so what I did was I'd played some phrases and I reversed them, so I played them on guitar and then I just did reverse in Audacity, so I got a nice sort of warped pulse, and then I had 3 piano or keyboard sounds, so there's 2 on a really old electric keyboard that's like full scale, and I had the tremolo effect on them, so that gave it like the Get Carter, the original theme track. So I did a little riff and then some improvisation on the other track. Then I had my little Casio creating space sounds, which I worked on. Then I had guitar, a little bit of improvisation, which I put through my old favourite, the pull stretch, and called that Guitar Melt. Then I used a slide on my guitar and did some improvising using the slide going up and down. And then finally I had Summer Is Coming.
Summer Is Coming, and you sang that, yeah?
Yes, I did. Yes, sorry about that.
No, it's wonderful. It's different.
So,
I think it was suitable for the 1970s, a 1970s inspired afternoon.
Yes. Well, funnily enough, I'd forgotten that it had been used in The Wicker Man, because when I was looking for originals, that came up. But yes, it's from 12th century folk song, and it's around. So I thought that was perfect, and it was really nice because I hadn't realised that your film was going to incorporate bird, and of course it's cuckoo. So that's nice.
No, wonderful. Well, thanks very much, Julia. And I think on the whole, the signals have been very good, haven't they? So that's great.
Well, visually, it's brilliant.
Okay, brilliant. So look, till next week then, Julia. Thanks again for contributing, and see you soon. Okay, take care. Bye.
See you then. Bye.
Okay, Tim. Tell us about the little people.
I'm sure it's on my keyboard or not. Where's the thing? Is this satellite? Oops, still in the
Well, we can hear it, surely. Yeah.
No, it sounds awful. It's not going directly through, it's just playing in the room. So
Oh, okay. Tim's just experimenting on a keyboard, but we'll have
it's my new
to.
toy. I'll figure it out next
yeah.
week. Now, I just want to talk about Little People quickly, which is what is in the background of all these programs. There's one thing that's new this week. Little People. Zoom in on one, will you? So we've got, forget these huge sun starfish. You've got little
I can
Nicholas.
turn those off if you like. Do you want me to
Yeah,
get rid of the sun stars?
Yeah, go ahead, turn it all off, apart from Little People. They're a bit too little, aren't they? You kind of barely see them. They were a bit bigger last week.
Well, I can.
Anyway, last week we just had little Nicola, and this week we've got little Nicola and little Tim, and they're just moving along, going in opposite directions, building. If they find a block, they pick it up, if they like the colour of it. So if Tim picks this one up, no, not interested, it's red. Big Tim picks up blue and green, and Nicola picks up white and reds probably. And then they go around and put it into piles. So we've been running all the time, building up little piles, and we'll add some more real stuff as we go along. But they build, effectively, all the blocks started out all over the place, and they've managed to build them up into quite nice little structures. So that's quite good. But the reason what I wanted to point out is on screen number 3. This is the first time I've ever used in programming. You have variables to change the positions of things, or the size of things, or the colour of things, or whatever. And this, or you could just name an object. So this is a starfish. This is a dot. This is a. So this is the first time I've ever called variables a Nicola and a Tim.
Ah.
So and this one line of code here, which you can just about read, says
int. So
what
you're
does
just
it say?
missing the end. Int.
It's saying action equals type equals 0. So if they're a 0 type, then do a Nicola, add a Nicola. If it's a 1 type, add a Tim. So anyway, I was just going to mention, it's the first time, probably not, effectively it's the first time, I never used variables like Nicola and Tim before, although we use lots of our body parts in the programs that we make. So I'm
It's
just
usually a
interested
hedgehog.
in tying that to the expanded cinema idea, where you are you become the cinema, you're part of it, it's all around you. It's the process of becoming. So in this program, we've scanned ourselves using Kinect sensors, picking up boxes, and then added that into the mix. So these little people, little industrious people, coding, building away in the background. So we'll develop them each week and do more interesting things. I can see at the minute, if they get to a tall block, they suddenly zoom up it somehow. They've got a lift. So they suddenly appear at the top of the block, and then they can drop their block down, lines them all up. So that's Little People.
So I've just put some red in my background.
Yeah.
So it's on this. Oof, no, you can't see it. Let's brighten it up a bit.
What I didn't notice is you can't zoom in on them, so I don't know why that is, but they are slightly too small, aren't they? So maybe oh no, and zoom does work. So on 3, I must have just been pressing the wrong. You can see a bit more close up. How do I get zoom? Mouse. So I can see a Nicola at the top of it.
So really, we need to lower the Little People, don't we?
You can lower the line at the baseline, so to speak. But actually, no, I didn't realise you can zoom on. I thought I did it before, but it didn't work. I was a bit perplexed by that. So that's cool. So that's a new one this week.
Yeah.
So what else have we got left to do, Nicola?
So I've got. I thought I'd show a cephalopodia.
Oh yeah.
Yes. How exciting. And so I've mentioned a number of times about superimposition and layers and what have you, and I've been learning coding over the last few years, and I got very interested in creating generative art and actually bringing a different aesthetic to what we do. So what I thought I'd do would be to get one of my programs and put all of the patterns on sliders and just bring them in one at a time, just to show, how...
Cool, do you want to kill the little people off?
The little people, I think, maybe the dots. I don't mind the little people there, but you can decide, okay?
I'll kill the dots.
Oh, look, my it doesn't
your
matter.
menu's around the side, Nicola.
is because I wanted to have well, no, it doesn't matter. They're actually I should have
Do you want me
created.
to tell you what they are?
No, I know what they are.
Okay.
It's all right. I'm just going to go through them. So this is so Cephalopodia.
What is cephalopodia, Nicola? Did you explain that?
Cephalopods.
Yes. What are they?
Okay, so cephalopods, group of the creatures that live in the group of cephalopods are squid, octopus, cuttlefish. They share something in common, which is a remarkable shimmery skin. This is made of things like photophores and iridophores and chromatophores. So it's different ways of illuminating or reflecting light in their skin, and they use it for I'll put it on me actually. Oh, that's interesting. They use it undoubtedly for camouflage, to hide. They may use it to attract food, and undoubtedly use it for
To scare people off,
well.
to scare other creatures off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a big question mark that some of them even just enjoy making patterns on their skin.
Well, and why not? Because I enjoy making patterns, so why shouldn't?
Well, they have been observed in
they
wild,
are art.
just sort of going through multicoloured arrangements, sort of as if like you've been kind of whistling to yourself or whatever, humming to yourself. But no one knows.
Mice sing. Bowerbirds build beautiful installations.
Do mice sing for fun?
Apparently, mice sing. I don't know.
How do they sing, Nicola?
Anyway,
Isn't
I'm just going to start by bringing in.
Well, let's get it on your screen.
Some patterns.
Too. So yeah, okay. So
this
it's a good way to learn how to code is to just start with very simple patterns and
Yeah.
then just make them more complicated.
That's
You've
right.
not
You
seen
can just
anything
about
there,
see it. Yeah.
Oh, the
No,
tiny
because
dots.
they are. I might actually brighten this
Yeah,
camera
brighten
up
that
a
screen
bit.
up. So I think I might kill off a little people because it's
Okay.
it might be affecting the.
It's possible. So I'm just
Well, I
gonna.
like yours as well. Oh, got a moth has appeared. Yeah, you're very dark on that screen.
Yeah. So let's make that less contrasty.
Probably because you've got this one as let's close bright dark in the screen. Right. All our screens
Yes,
affect each other,
essentially.
so if we make this one darker, then we might have a better chance of seeing that one.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just dropping donuts, as I called them, into the space, and you see that they're fading, and they're fading because there's a background that's got. If you've done programming, you do put a rectangle and draw function. It's just slowly dissolving the images. Anyway, donuts. Okay, the next one is. It's interesting. It's actually behaving slightly differently on my program. Anyway, believe it or not, there are black dots in there, which you can't properly see at the moment because it's so dark.
So
But
dark,
you will.
Rachel.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, my mouse is playing up a bit as well. Right, so here are
That's
some triangles. You know, this is odd. I wonder if it's a different version of processing.
Is it because the width and the height are a different size to the what they were when you wrote the program?
Well, I mean, this looks amazing, but it looks like it's an echo.
Oh yeah, it does do that. This. Yeah.
Which version of processing is this?
If it
Anyway,
goes
do you
to
know what?
the
I don't
info,
mind.
turn video.
I don't mind.
You don't mind? So
No, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's just pattern making, okay? But this is not what I was expecting. But then, isn't that the beauty of coding? So I'm now going to bring in. So I've got number 4, and this one is meant to be hollow eggs. It says, which you can just about see. Oh, look, the lovely triangle coming in. Okay, so do you see my? If you don't get on it, you have to click on it, don't you? Right, so the next one, can you see there are little wiggly lines there? That's the mouse, so it's forming these little wiggly lines. Again, because the scene's repeating, so I'm just building up the layers, okay? So this is a 3D object that's just come into the space.
processing has very basic 3D primitives. That's a sphere, is it?
Yeah.
They have a sphere in a box. I think that's the only two they have, don't they?
You can deform them though, because you can put
Stretching.
two. Yeah, well, you can say these eggs are probably 15, let's say. But if you actually put in 2 numbers, then you can actually change it on the X and Y axis as well. Okay. So that's there. Right. The next one, I think, is another triangle.
Yep. Blue
And
ones,
these have
faint.
also got Lerper colour on them. So they are actually, the colour is changing. It will go from orange to blue. So you can see it looks like we're weaving a tapestry basically. And then the last one is going to be rectangles.
That looks good, that one.
So, and these are, you can see changing colour. And then right at the bottom, I've got the, oh gosh, stay. And then right at the bottom, I've got, this is meant to be changing the colour of the background.
It is.
Okay, right.
So muddy colours you got there.
Wow, well.
Leave it. Anyway, we talk. So this type of loads of patterns, geometric patterns, we did use in a piece called Chicken Monster, didn't we? Which we took to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So we had, there were background patterns, you couldn't affect them, but on top of that, you could add in this 3D models, and there was a webcam where you could put things in front of it, and it would capture it on a green screen and just draw the object on top. You could add your face in or your hand as well if you're clever.
That's right. But I think, perhaps I'm just.
So each of those patterns is probably only about 4 or 5 lines of code, or a few lines of code, not many.
Yeah.
So just by little simple bits of code, add more layers if you like that, keep it.
And then
it's kind of how we build things up. That's how Nicola's been building up these patterns.
But it's just, but also it's generative. So because by actually using frame count. And then so you can actually then put the coloration on a timer so it will shift over time and then go back again. We've got rotation on the cubes. And then you can have breathing. I actually took the breathing off this, but I had,
It is sort of rippling slightly. I mean, there's also it's nice. I mean, I like the 3D on top of the flat 2D. And then what sometimes we've done a few times is Nicola does a bunch of these patterns up, and then she hands it over to me, and then I add in a kind of another little creature or something that's doing something different, like might be going from box to box and turning it on or off or something like that. So just a kind of a very small parasite to Nicola's program, basically, is the way we were thinking about it. And we did a few of those.
Well, it was also because of the cockatoo squid, which we've had in the program before.
We showed a few weeks ago.
Yeah, thinking about actually making, so possibly, believe it or not, this. Why would you believe it or not? There's a mask in the background of this, so it's possible to hide elements. So on the left-hand side, you can see some black. It's created circles over the object. So it's it could be possible to contain this pattern within.
Yeah, the black's quite nice on the left. It needs a bit more. It needs something that's a bit more destructive. You've got a lot of stuff that's added to the.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it shouldn't quite look like this. No. Something peculiar has happened, but why not work?
I think there's a repeat in that version of processing. Is that your own program, or is it based in the video people?
It's my own program. I wrote it separately, so it's called Careful.
It's something to do with when you've got loads of graphics layers, and some of them don't. Some of them.
Well, I was doing it in version 3.5, so I don't know which version.
It's a previous version, so there are slight differences in the.
Anyway, so I think Tim's got something to talk about on another wall.
Yeah, so this was another one based on a John Lansdowne. That was a college actually. We both went to at different times, which was he was a pioneer in computer. And we all said pioneer, don't we? He was another early important computer programmer for the arts, for creative use of computing, and he also did animations and stuff like this in the 60s, 70s. And there was a centre in Middlesex, in Cockfosters in Middlesex. There was a course there which ran from about mid-90s through to, when did you do yours, Nicola?
94 to 96.
Oh, so when did I do mine?
89? No.
No, you did yours in 2000.
Oh, what am I talking about? 2004 to 2006.
I did mine in like 90 something.
Yeah, I lied.
96.
I wish I had that, yeah. No, I think the course...
I was another first year, the second year, Nicola. I think Dr. Julie Freeman was in the first year. Was she in the third year? Anyway, lots of people who have ended up in the computer arts world went through that course. It was a really great course. It was one of the few courses in the country at the time which taught coding to artists. And they actually taught in, could you believe this, C++. Ugh. What a well, not horrible, but just way more complicated than anything I've used since. But yeah, it was kind of a hardcore course. Had about 15, 20 people each year, and loads of those people have ended up being kind of some of the movers and shakers in the computer art world. Anyway, so this, what am I talking about? Not John Lansdowne, John Whitney. who was in Expanded Cinema, the book, and one of his early computer animation films, I think this must have been that, was this one was called Permutations, which actually was it called Simon Ray?
Yeah.
He said he had a copy of this somewhere, so it was like, it was a big thing back in the day, a very early computer generated film. This isn't the film, this is just, I've looked at the film and thought, oh okay, I can see how part of that is done. And then obviously John Whitney was doing much more complicated things because he had all these optical scattering effects, but basically, I don't know if what I can do in this program, does it stop at all? I'm going to stop it and start it again. If I can work out how. Escape. Oh Nicola, look, I'm going to show some code again. Is that a bad idea?
I'm going to brighten you up a bit.
This is the whole of this program. It's about, well this isn't his program, this is my version of a small part of it. Again, that essentially that is the program, that bit there. It's a loop going through degrees around a circle, and then it's using some polar coordinates to draw X dots at various distances from the central point. If I comment this bit out,
It's really almost impossible to read, isn't it?
it doesn't matter. I'm just going to talk it through now. I just want to see what. So I can see here that I've added a bit extra. I can't remember what it was. So let's just run it and see. If we run the program, well, I can't really tell the difference. Oh, I see what the difference is. Yeah, I've chopped out some of the middle section for some reason to make it look a bit more like his film, I suppose.
It's so dark.
It doesn't matter. No, it looks fine on the screen. So what is interesting about this? I don't know if it's going to. Is every now and then it hits, all the dots line up and make a kind of very obvious geometric shape, which, if you know your maths, are polar coordinates. Like rows algorithms. So they look like rose shapes. And then he did something like this, and then he added he put multiple layers on top of it using film.
Oh.
It's kind of intriguing enough. It just shows us kind of a tiny program, which is basically a loop and 3 lines of code inside the loop. You can create these kind of interesting effects. They're maths based. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, clever coding. So this type of effect is done by using a mathematical formula, which is the polar coordinates. Which is, they're great because you get all this stuff out that you didn't think you'd get in just from a single line of code. You can get quite a complicated visual effect. But I call it kind of clever coding because it's really the maths is doing the work for you, rather than the artist doing the work. The maths is doing the work. So I tend not to use a lot of complicated mathematical equations in our programs. There's 1 or 2 exceptions, but I tend to avoid that because there's people who've been doing that since forever, and with pen and ink plotters and making these really complicated geometric patterns and in multiple dimensions, fractals, all these sort of amazing visuals which I love to look at, but I never really done it in coding because I feel like it's a path that is very well travelled, and we're sort of trying to go on our own different path. So down with clever coding, Nicola.
Oh.
We do lots of things that are kind of quite clever, but they're not heavily mathematical. You can do, in fact, the most complicated maths, and I studied maths when I was a kid, is really Pythagoras theorem. That's about as complicated as, a little bit more complicated than that, a bit of trigonometry, but nothing much more than that. Certainly no neural networks and the latest things that people use. Just simple stuff. If this, do that. If that, do that. Put this on top of this. How does it look like? And Nicola's changed it all up on me while I've been yabbering away.
Well, and talking, you mentioned Simon Ray earlier, so I understand that he used to have what were they called? Is it the...
It was a mobile VJ, before VJs existed.
Used to do the liquid light show.
Liquid light shows.
But so basically this is experiments I did in liquid light, and we were working on a film about inflammation, and I thought, okay, well it might be interesting to work with some liquids.
Liquid light's another classic of Expanded Cinema as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so
classic component.
Yeah.
Which I used to go to school discos with liquid lights on the walls and stuff like that. Best part of the disco, isn't it, Nicola?
Indeed. And it gives us a chance to fill the, perhaps you can get a camera on that one and fill the space with some
I'm going to flip the
light. And gives us a chance to finish off talking about the noosphere. Do you know anything about the noosphere?
I've read about it a few times, and it always just goes in one ear and out the other, Nicola. So you better tell me what it actually is again.
No, but the thing is, actually,
is it technology and humans altogether?
Yeah, it's kind of, but I mean, because it actually put me in mind of science fiction. I love Stapleton, but in the book, the chapter that actually introduces it, it's actually thinking about it from a negative point of view, because so if you think of the biosphere or atmosphere, the noosphere, which is like the mind sphere, is actually, so it was first Pierre Teilhard de Chardin.
Oh, I've heard of him.
Yeah, so
he's involved in systems theory, isn't he?
He was a priest and a philosopher, and he was referring to the sphere of thought encircling the earth that's emerged through evolution. But it's so a new organ of consciousness, a new technology. But actually, if you think about it, then it's technological anyway, because if you think about the internet and satellites and television, it's the way in which the whole world, or we can think of it in the way in which the whole world communicates with each other.
Yeah.
But in the book, it actually talks about the fact that it's used often to control people. But I then started thinking, well, and in the book it talks about cosmic consciousness, but you know, Olaf Stapleton is also a philosopher and science fiction writer, and these were around the same times. I mean, so de Chardin was 1881 to 1955, and Olaf Stapleton 1886 to 1950. But in Stapleton's science fiction, so in particular Last Man, First Man and Star Maker, it's actually that cosmic consciousness is telepathic, that the humans have evolved to such a state, they are part cybernetic, and you know, in Last Man, First Man, you go through 18 evolutions of humankind. So the idea of telepathy isn't, you know, it's not like I'm trying to think what science fiction.
They also wanted to get in the body, didn't they? And so everything would just become pure energy and thoughts and consciousness connected at light speed.
And the idea is, so in Stapleton's work, it's actually used, or we can think of it as being a state of improvement, of actually a better understanding and sympathy with each other, less ego. Or the noosphere, because it just came up in the book. But I was also thinking about, you know, we work with technology, we're surrounded by technology, we're sending it out there, not to control. But I just, it was just all of these expanded ideas and, you know,
you're getting
oceanic feeling. I just thought, wow. And noosphere is
right, get it on screen 3, because I've set up an interesting little challenge here. I've got a load of little Nicholas. Sorry, 3. I've got a load of little Nicholas. They have a yellow clump, and a load of little Tims, a blue clump, and they're coming.
Zoom in on them.
Hold on, well, they've got a massive pile of bricks in the middle. I want to see what happens. See who's got a bomb up it. See if anyone bombs up it. Oh, look, they're all picking them up. Look. Oh dear, what a mess.
And it's interesting because
loads of other Nicholas have got loads of boxes, and there's only about one Tim's picked up. Oh, it's really lazy, isn't it?
2 Tims carrying 1 box.
Poor.
Zoom in on it.
Well, the thing is, they're not going to get anywhere, so they go, actually, because why is Nicholas not putting them down? They have to wait till they get all the way around the other side before they put them down. I thought I gave it a very low percentage chance that they would put the block down at any point. So we have to wait till they get back to the middle again to put it on anything. So Nicholas, can I turn the synthesizer on?
Yeah.
Woo!
not the best quality.
That was number. What do you mean not the best quality? That was good. That's used all.
Yeah, it sounded good in the space. I'm not sure it sounded so good.
Okay, I'll try industrial.
Not accurate.
I dropped the tempo down to almost like 0. I don't know how to get rid of like echo and stuff on it. There is a banner, so I guess it's not there. I'll master that by next week and play a little ditty or use it somehow, chop it all up. Wow, that's wicked. Okay, so I'm going to put this. Should I put this piece on, Nicola? This is just a stretched bit of something. Background. Okay, we're a bit low there. Mix of various things. So just going to talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do next week. Next week is Burning Man. Have you ever been to Burning Man, Nicola?
No, I haven't.
Have you been to Glastonbury, Nicola?
Yes, I have.
It's like Glastonbury, but without all the mud and
smelly toilets,
stinking toilets and trees, anything green. So it's like everyone arrives in the middle of this desert, and like, is it Nevada or something? With loads and loads of tech, set up all those amazing new age, expanded cinema, consciousness raising, cool art science stuff. I've never been. But this year it's not happening because of COVID, so they're doing it all online. So one of the people who've been given an online kind of world as part of the Burning Man, there are about 6 or 7 different worlds, and one of them is called Sparkleverse. Sparkleverse are a UK-based sort of collective party online video party running collective.
I think Sparkleverse is the name of the event, isn't it?
No, it's the name of this collective, and they are. Oh yeah, they're called. No, they have got a proper name as well. But,
I'll see if I can find them.
so they're running a whole area where you can you can add in your own rooms and then stream in whatever video content you want from your space. I think primarily, I've not been to one of these either. Primarily, it's people kind of performing in their space, in their living room, sort of cabaret type performances. But there's also lots of chat and collaborative party games, drinking, all sorts of weird stuff. So we're trying to work out how we can do this show, send that, do it live stream within their space as part of the Burning Man Festival. So we would do it through Zoom, so we'd have to put all this OBS stuff into Zoom, which we have done once before and it worked okay. So people here, you can still watch this show normally. It will end up on YouTube. It'll be streamed to YouTube, but also streamed through Zoom, so you can experience it live. People in the festival go to this big festival website. They walk around the website, find little spaces. Ours is going to be something to do with exploding heads. So you can go into this space. We will get a webcam pointing at you, your webcam in the space.
Scanners themes.
Like scanners, Cronenberg scanners. That's what sort of the starting point, the idea. And we will use pixel explosion to explode your face all over, splatter your face all over the virtual screen, alongside all this expanded cinema stuff. So we're ready to go. We just can't quite work out how to. We're only going to be doing it for a couple of hours, and Burning Man lasts for a week or so. We might do a couple of sessions, one so that in the middle of the night UK, we have to whisper that one, so that American people can experience it. But, so we're just trying to figure out how to connect up with this Sparkleverse.
But just keep a look on the front end of our website, because once we know what we're doing,
it will still be the same time. We'll definitely be Wednesday.
We'll still do it on YouTube anyway, won't we? So
yeah, it will still be the same time, 4 to 6 o'clock next Wednesday. But it also may be part of this Burning Man experience, which if you want to enter the Sparkleverse, you can.
Burning Man or Exploding Man?
Burning Man Festival.
Yeah.
Online Burn, I think they're calling it this year. So you can also, if you want to make a donation to them, you can go and visit it that way. I think Sparkleverse is free, but they also take donations. So we will try and sort all that out. And that's it, I think, Nicola. I'm going to put the end on.
6 o'clock. And the signal held, so that's great news. So yeah, that was a journey into. You turn me off.
The noosphere.
A journey into the noosphere, or the moosphere. Moosphere.